What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel, and today we are back with our second installment, part 2 of the Hardcore Companion Druid build series here in Diablo 4. And before I get started, I like to, I haven't posted in my YouTube channel for a couple days. It just had some, life obligations we had to take care of, as well as I do live in Florida, so we had the hurricane that came through, and we had to prepare for that. But now that that's out of the way, we can finally get through the second part here. And we're pretty much starting right where we left off. So as you can see, we are level 19. We were level 18 when we stopped the last video. And I believe we put this first skill point here into the unrestrained passive. Again, we are using unrestrained to continue to reinforce our crowd control reduction here, as we will be eventually moving away from bulwark, so we will not have that unstoppable passive. Now, like I said in the last video, the reason why we're doing this is we just kind of wanted to approach the game from a different direction. But also, I did read that they are going to be implementing some small nerfs to the crowd control effects in the in-game dungeons. So I am hoping that this build will turn out quite nice for those dungeons. And then you'll see here we start to move back up into our Storm skill passives with a point into Bad Omen at level 20. Now, I really do like the Storm skill passive tree. However, I do feel like it does need some substantial buffs there. I do feel like some of the percentage chances to proc those passives are a bit too low, and the damage that they output just does not warrant such a low percentage chance to proc. So I hope that they do buff those as soon as possible, especially since that is the type of build we are using, and I do feel like it could definitely use some love. Now, before we continue on, I would like to say from the last video, I did post out this video, the last video, onto Reddit in hopes to get some constructive feedback. Now, I know that's probably pretty crazy, as Reddit's not really known for that kind of thing, especially in the Diablo and Diablo 4 subreddits, because those are usually littered with the current flavor of the month. Diablo is terrible. Diablo 4 is the worst game ever. And so you can see, like, if you've been on those Reddit pages, you can see why it might not be a good idea. However, I am enjoying the game, and for some reason, some people who seemed very kind and had some kind words did post on that Reddit post, and they overall gave me some good constructive criticism. They did say that some people said I did a good job and my overall presentation was nice, which, guys, I really do appreciate those words. They really do help out, especially as a new content creator, and giving me the confidence to keep making these videos. However, there was a gentleman who did post a really nice compliment, as well as followed it up with, you may get some comments on Druid builds not, companion builds not being viable for Druid in-game. And I am paraphrasing there, but that's basically the gist of it. Now, like I said in the last video, I did know this was the case, and I do feel like druids have the companion aspect of the druid has been buffed a little bit recently, and it is a meaningful buff, some meaningful buffs. I do feel a decent change in the overall damage output of the companions in terms of the druid. However, that does not mean to say that they're in a good place overall when compared to the other builds. Companions are still very lackluster in terms of damage output independently, as well as their ability to survive into the later stages of the game. There's a reason why these skills do have such a lackluster effect as well in terms of the new updates. So there was a recent patch that increased mob density, and that's overall a good thing for the game. Many people were requesting more monsters to kill. Obviously, it's an action RPG. That's the natural evolution of the game. However, when it comes to skills that are specifically target locked, skills that don't penetrate, skills that don't have a massive AoE, those skills will see a significant drop in viability. Speaking to the companion skills, we're talking about wolves and ravens. Ravens having an incredibly small AoE and doing very lackluster damage. And wolves obviously having an active that is a single target almost, well, it does hit multiple targets, but in a very small AoE, basically a single target active skill. And obviously you only have 2 up to 3 wolves if you're using the right aspects. So you can see where that might be a problem for those skills and why they might need a significant buff into the future. especially since they're not necessarily scaling off of your elemental damages, and you can't use them when you're in direwolf or werebear form. And you're also companion skill damage is probably one of the worst affixes you can get on your gear. Now, I did have an idea where they can improve that by maybe changing companion skill damage on your gear to just companion damage overall, and scaling that basic attack damage that your passive attack that your companions do off of that affix as well. And then possibly even changing the damage type your companions do to maybe scale off of your highest level elemental damage type. I don't know. It's just some ideas I had in my head that might make companions a little better. Also, making the skills usable in werebear and in direwolf form will be pretty useful as well. But I did just want to ask you guys, if you could comment in the comments section, what do you guys determine, what do you guys deem a viable build to be? Now, for me, I think a viable build is anything you complete the majority of content without, much resistance, and scales into the, I would say, a decent amount of the late game, and finishes that content at a relatively decent pace to where you are not getting bored, as playing games is all about fun, and if you're not having fun, well, what's the point? But I would like to ask, what is your opinion out there? So post out in the comments, let me know. Do you think in-game is similar to what I think it is, or a viable build is similar to what I think it is, or do you think it has to, complete level, tier 100 dungeons, or is there a time variant to that, or do you think it has to complete both Uber Lilith and tier 100, or is there a time variant to that as well? So yeah, just let me know. I'd love to know what you guys' opinions are. But getting back to the build here. Now, after we finished up Bad Omen, we did move back down to the ultimate passive tree in the nature magic section. So that's a really great passive skill tree for our build. The first skill we picked up is 1 point in Defiance. So the Defiance passive is really good because it gives us a percentage-based damage increase to elite enemies. I believe it starts at 5% and scales up to 15%. So it's a definitely must-have for our build, as well as many other builds out there. And that's because obviously we're going to be dealing more damage to elites, but elites don't just count as the monsters you see in the dungeon, as the one that was just there on the screen that says elite. It also counts as bosses, and I believe players as well. So it's definitely a must-have. And then we moved into points into Circle of Life. Now, I won't be keeping Circle of Life forever, but it is a really great passive to have in the early game. And the reason why that is because it gives us a percentage-based amount of our health back off of the use of spirit costing core skills. And that's really good because we don't really have much in terms of health regeneration in the early game. So that will keep our health topped up. And I did put 3 points into it. You probably don't need to put 3 points into it, but it was really just based out of preference. And like I said, I will be moving out of that specific passive, most likely entirely going into the mid to late game. And then you've seen us move down to the ultimate skill passives, and I picked up Perfect Storm. Now, Perfect Storm is a really good early game ultimate skill passive, as it gives us a little bit more spirit regeneration, as well as increases our damage to enemies that are under vulnerability, immobilized, or slow. And clearly our build is meant to cause that vulnerability debuff to enemies, and also has tons of immobilize. However, we will be moving out of that later on towards the mid game, probably before we even go into the first capstone dungeon, into Nature's Fury. And that's just because Nature's Fury is just so insanely good. You almost have to have it. And then from there, you see us track up into the core skills and go into the very first passive tree you have access to. And that's because we are going to want to get to Wild Impulses. And you see, we have to get 1 point in Heart of the Wild first, and then we go into Wild Impulses. And that is a really good passive skill tree there, because it gives us that increased damage to our core skills. Now, like I said, I won't be using a direwolf build here, so you'd think that maybe increasing the cost of our core skills is a bit much. But actually, Lightning Storm is a relatively low cost skill. It only costs about 15 spirit. So that small 9% increase is only like, I believe it's like a 2-point increase to our overall spirit cost for a massive 15% increase to the damage. So you can see why I ended up picking that up. Now, I did want to go over some of the other aspects that I do enjoy on this build, especially early on, just to give you guys a little bit of an idea as to how I kind of, start to build my character out, because we're just really going to pick up those extra points and wild impulses. So the first aspect I like to kind of pick up here in the early game is the aspect of disobedience. And obviously, that's a go-to one for pretty much every hero, as it increases your armor based off damage you deal. And armor is the name of the game currently in Diablo 4. Now, they will be kind of adjusting the resistances, supposed to be in a very meaningful way for Season 2, but we are not there yet. We are in the middle of Season 1, so disobedience is still a must-have, even though it has been nerfed some recently. And then I like to grab up Aspect of Might. Now, Aspect of Might is really good because it gives you a 20% damage reduction after you use a basic attack skill. And we constantly weave in hits with Wind Shear just to build up spirit between our core skill usage. So we pretty much always have up that 20% damage reduction. And it's really beneficial for keeping us alive, especially in hardcore. It's a must-have as well. And then for some attack aspects I like to grab up Rapid Aspect for that increased attack speed on your basic attack. It can be really useful for just, applying that vulnerability debuff as well as generating that spirit so you can keep casting your core skills. And it's relatively easy to get in the early game. And then I also like to grab up Lightning Dancer. So like I said, a lot of the issues you might find in the late game is dealing enough damage to all of the monsters that are on your screen, especially with skills like Lightning Storm, because it is target locked. So that aspect specifically gives you these small electricity kind of pulses that travel out through the ground that hit surrounding enemies based off of critical hits with Lightning Storm. And it's very useful for clearing packs of monsters, especially in the early game, mid game, late. Well, it's useful everywhere. As you can see on the screen there, the little kind of lightning pulses that travel throughout the ground. So it's definitely something I'll probably keep on my build for the majority of the time, if not the entire time I am building out this character. And then over the overcharged aspect. Now, overcharged aspect is really, really powerful. However, it is kind of hamstringed by the fact that it has a very low percentage chance to proc. Now, there are some other really weird things about that aspect, especially the fact that it doesn't scale when you put it on higher power leveled gear. You have to find that aspect on gear that is of a higher level for it to actually scale into that gear. Either that or you're going to have to put it on your gear from the aspect vendor. And I like this aspect because when it does proc, it does a ton of damage. But like I said, it is a bit hamstringed by the fact that it has such a low chance to proc. It's 10% from the aspect vendor, but if you find it on a piece of gear, it can scale all the way up to 20%. I'll probably put it on a necklace just so that way I have it up to 30%. But it's one of those that you're going to have to find it not only on a piece of high-end gear with a high power level, so that way it actually scales up in damage, but you're going to have to find it with a perfect roll percent chance to proc, and that's going to be really hard to do. So at the end of the day, we'll probably end up having to sacrifice something there. But that's really it for the video, guys. I kind of wanted just to expand upon those aspects overall. And I feel pretty confident going into the next video here. And overall, I think the character's doing pretty well. The next video will have our boons and everything in it, so I look forward to making that video. But again, thank you guys for watching. I appreciate all you guys and all your comments, and that's it for me. See you on the next one. Peace out, guys.